My father died owing me $47,000. Money I'd loaned him over the years because he was always broke, always struggling, always one bad month away from losing everything. I buried him in a cheap casket because that's all I could afford. And then, 3 days after his funeral, a man in a $10,000 suit showed up at my door and said 5 words that destroyed everything I thought I knew. Your father was a billionaire. Before I tell you how my broke, struggling father turned out to be one of the richest men in America, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for Story Matrix Hub. Because this story has more twists than you can imagine, and you're going to want to hear every single second. Now let me take you back to the beginning, to the day my father died and took all his secrets with him. My name is Daniel Carter, I'm 34 years old, and until 2 weeks ago, I thought I knew exactly who my father was. Robert Carter. Age 68. Retired accountant. Divorced from my mother when I was 12. Lived alone in a rundown apartment in Queens, New York. Drove a 1998 Honda Civic that barely ran. Shopped at Goodwill. Ate at soup kitchens sometimes when money was tight. My father was poor. Not just regular poor, struggling poor. The kind of poor where he'd call me every few months asking to borrow money for rent, for medicine, for car repairs. And I always gave it to him. Always. Not because we were close, we weren't. After the divorce, I'd seen him maybe twice a year. Awkward dinners where we'd run out of things to say after 20 minutes. Birthday cards with $20 bills inside that I knew he couldn't afford to give. But he was my father. And despite everything, despite the distance and the awkwardness and the fact that he'd walked out on Mom and me, I couldn't just let him starve. Over 15 years, I'd loaned him $47,000. I kept track in a spreadsheet. Not because I expected him to pay me back. I knew he never would. But because I needed to know the exact cost of having Robert Carter as a father. 2 weeks ago, on a Tuesday morning, I got the call. Mr. Carter? This is Queens General Hospital. Your father was brought in an hour ago. Heart attack. You should come now. I was at work, in the middle of a presentation. I'm a project manager at a construction company. I told my boss it was an emergency and drove to Queens. When I got there, Dad was in ICU. Machines beeping. Tubes everywhere. He looked so small in that hospital bed. Old and fragile, and nothing like the man who used to throw me in the air when I was 5. He's not going to make it, the doctor told me quietly. Maybe a few hours. I'm sorry. I sat beside his bed and held his hand. We'd never been affectionate, handshakes, not hugs, but this felt right. His eyes opened around 3 p.m. Cloudy, unfocused. Then they found me. Daniel, he whispered. His voice was barely there. I'm here, Dad. I need to tell you. Don't talk. Save your strength. No. Important. He squeezed my hand with surprising force. I'm sorry. For what? Everything. All of it. The lies. The distance. The money. He coughed, a wet, painful sound. You deserved better. It's okay, Dad. We're okay. No. You don't understand. His eyes were urgent now, desperate. The lawyer. You need to, the lawyer will. What lawyer? Marcus Webb. Manhattan. He'll explain. Dad, I don't understand. I loved you. Always. I couldn't. Another cough, worse this time. The machines started beeping faster. Dad, I'm sorry I couldn't be what you needed. But Daniel, you're going to understand. Soon. And I hope you can forgive me. Forgive you for what? But he didn't answer. His eyes closed. The beeping got louder. Nurses rushed in. Someone pushed me out of the room. 15 minutes later, a doctor came out and said what I already knew. My father was dead. I stood in that hospital hallway, numb, trying to process what had just happened. Not just that my father was dead, but those last words. The lawyer. Marcus Webb. What did any of that mean? I called my ex-wife, Melissa. We'd been divorced for 2 years, but stayed friendly. Dan, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? I don't know. He said some weird things before he died. Like what? He mentioned a lawyer. Marcus Webb in Manhattan. Said the lawyer would explain something. Do you think he had debts? Something illegal? I don't know, babe. But you need to find out. Call the lawyer. After I hung up, I Googled Marcus Webb lawyer Manhattan. The first result made my blood run cold. Webb & Associates. One of the most prestigious law firms in New York. The kind of firm that represents Fortune 500 companies and billionaires. Their fees started at $1,500 an hour. Why would my broke father know a lawyer like that? I called the number. A professional receptionist answered. Webb and Associates, how may I direct your call? Hi. My name is Daniel Carter. My father just passed away, and he mentioned Marcus Webb. I don't know if. Mr. Carter. Yes, we've been expecting your call. Mr. Webb has been waiting to hear from you. Can you come to our office tomorrow morning? Say 9 a.m. What? He's been waiting for my call. Yes, sir. Regarding your father's estate. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. Sure. Yes. Okay. I hung up, confused. Estate? What estate? My father lived in a $600 a month apartment and drove a car held together with duct tape. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Dad's last words. I'm sorry for the lies. What lies? The next morning, I put on my only suit and took the subway to Manhattan. Webb and Associates was in a gleaming high-rise in Midtown. The kind of building with marble floors and original artwork on the walls. The receptionist smiled. Mr. Carter, Mr. Webb is ready for you. 23rd floor, corner office. The elevator ride felt like it took forever. When the doors opened, a young woman in an expensive suit was waiting. Mr. Carter, I'm Sarah, Mr. Webb's assistant. Please follow me. She led me down a hallway lined with mahogany doors to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Behind a massive desk sat a man in his 60s, silver hair, sharp eyes, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. Mr. Carter. He stood and offered his hand. Marcus Webb. Please sit. I'm very sorry for your loss. Thank you. Mr. Webb, I'm really confused. Why did my father mention you? Did he owe you money? Webb smiled sadly. No, Mr. Carter. Quite the opposite. I've been your father's attorney for 35 years. I'm the executor of his estate. Estate? My father didn't have an estate. He barely had anything. Mr. Carter, that's not true. Your father had quite a lot. He just chose not to use it. I don't understand. Webb opened a file on his desk. Your father, Robert Carter, was born Robert Castellano. He changed his name in 1985, 2 years before you were born. What? Why would he change his name? Because he wanted to disappear. To live a normal life. Away from his family's expectations and their money. Money? What money? Webb looked at me carefully. Mr. Carter, your father's family, your family, founded Castellano Industries in 1952. You may have heard of them. I had heard of them. Everyone had. Castellano Industries was one of the largest manufacturing conglomerates in America. They made everything from auto parts to medical devices. Billions in revenue. That's a coincidence. Same last name. It's not a coincidence. Robert Castellano was the youngest son of Antonio Castellano, the founder. Your grandfather. The room started spinning. That's impossible. My father was an accountant. He was poor. He was an accountant, Webb agreed. But only because he chose to be. Your father walked away from his family fortune when he was 23. He wanted nothing to do with the business or the money. He wanted a simple, authentic life. This doesn't make sense. If he had money, why did he borrow from me? Why did he live in that awful apartment? Because he was committed to his choice. He took nothing from his family after he left. He lived on what he earned as an accountant, and when he retired, he lived on Social Security and his small pension. He refused to touch his inheritance. But he borrowed money from me. $47,000 over 15 years. Webb's expression softened. I know, and I advised him against it many times. But Mr. Carter, Daniel, your father borrowed that money not because he needed it. He borrowed it because it was the only way he knew how to stay connected to you. That hit me like a punch to the gut. What? After your parents' divorce, your mother made it clear she didn't want him around. The custody arrangement was minimal. Your father felt he'd failed you. Failed as a husband, as a father. The only way he could maintain a connection was by being in need. By giving you a reason to talk to him, even if it was about money. That's insane. That's grief. And guilt. And love, expressed very badly. Webb pushed a document across the desk. Your father's will is straightforward. He left everything to you. Everything? What's everything? Webb met my eyes. As of this morning, your inheritance is valued at approximately $2.7 billion. I laughed. Actually laughed. That's not possible. I assure you it is. Your father's share of Castellano Industries, his investments, properties, trusts, it all comes to you. You are now one of the wealthiest men in America. I couldn't breathe. This is a joke. It's not. Your father lived like a pauper for 40 years while his fortune grew. He never touched it. He was waiting. Waiting for what? For you. He always planned to leave it to you. But he wanted you to know him as a man, not as money. He wanted you to see him struggle and still choose to help him. That's why he never told you. He was testing whether you were the kind of person who deserved this fortune. That's manipulative. Perhaps. But it's also love. Complicated, imperfect love. I stood up, pacing. I need air. This is too much. Take your time. But Daniel, you need to understand something. This inheritance comes with complications. Your father's family, the Castellanos, they don't know you exist. Your father kept you a secret from them for 34 years. And when they find out that their estranged brother's son just inherited $2.7 billion, they're going to have questions. What kind of questions? Webb's expression darkened. The kind that lead to lawsuits. The kind that make people do desperate things. I left that office in a daze. My father wasn't who I thought he was. My entire life was built on a lie. And somewhere in Manhattan, there was a family I'd never met who were about to find out I existed. I sat on a bench in Central Park for 3 hours, just trying to process it all. My phone kept buzzing. Work calling, wondering where I was. I ignored it. At 2 p.m., my phone rang again. Unknown number. Hello. Daniel Carter? A woman's voice. Cold. Professional. Yes. My name is Victoria Castellano. I believe we need to talk about your father. Or should I say, my Uncle Robert. My blood ran cold. How did you get this number? I have resources. We need to meet. Today. There's a cafe on 5th Avenue. I don't want to meet you. I don't care what you want. You just inherited a fortune that belongs to my family. So you can meet me voluntarily, or I can make your life very difficult. Your choice. I closed my eyes. Webb had warned me. What cafe? Café Noir. 5th and 58th. 1 hour. She hung up. I sat there on that bench, holding a phone call from a family I didn't know existed, about a fortune I never wanted, left to me by a father I never really knew. And I realized my simple life was over. Everything was about to change. The question was I ready for what came next? I showed up to Café Noir 20 minutes early. I wanted to see them before they saw me. The cafe was exactly what I expected, expensive, exclusive, the kind of place where a coffee costs $18. I ordered a water and sat in the back corner where I could watch the door. At exactly 3 p.m., they arrived. 3 people. The woman in front was in her early 40s, wearing a Chanel suit and carrying a Birkin bag. Her hair was pulled back severe and tight. Everything about her screamed money and power. Behind her were 2 men. One was around 50, balding, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The other was younger, maybe my age, athletic build, expensive watch, looking around the cafe like he owned it. They spotted me immediately. Of course they did. I was the only person in there wearing a $200 suit from Macy's. The woman walked over. Up close, I could see the family resemblance. She had Dad's eyes. My eyes. Daniel. It wasn't a question. She sat down without being invited. The 2 men flanked her. I'm Victoria Castellano. This is my brother James and my cousin Anthony. How did you find me? We have investigators. The moment Marcus Webb filed probate documents, we were notified. Robert was still a shareholder. We have alerts. She folded her hands on the table. Let's not waste time. I'm here to make you an offer. I don't want anything from you. You already have something from us. $2.7 billion that should have stayed in our family. It's my father's money. He can leave it to whoever he wants. James leaned forward. Robert abandoned this family 40 years ago. He turned his back on everything our grandfather built. He doesn't get to suddenly decide his illegitimate son gets a share. Illegitimate? I felt my anger rising. My parents were married. After he walked away, Victoria said coldly. After he changed his name and pretended he wasn't a Castellano anymore. Your father was a coward and a traitor. Don't talk about him like that. Or what? Anthony spoke for the first time. You'll what exactly? You're a nobody. A construction worker. Project manager. Same thing. You have no idea what you've inherited. No idea how to manage that kind of wealth. No idea about the business, the responsibilities, the board meetings. You're going to destroy what my great-grandfather built. I don't want anything to do with your business. Good, Victoria said quickly. Then take our offer. We'll buy out your shares. $3 billion. Cash. You walk away, sign an NDA, and we never have to see each other again. I stared at her. You want to pay me $300 million more than the inheritance is worth? Consider it a severance package. For staying away. And if I say no? Victoria's smile was ice. Then we challenged the will. We proved that Robert was mentally incompetent when he made his final arrangements. We tie this up in court for years. We make your life so miserable that you'll wish you'd taken our offer. I stood up. I need time to think. You have 48 hours, James said. After that, the offer expires and we file suit. I walked out of that cafe shaking. Not from fear, from rage. I called Marcus Webb. Daniel, I was expecting your call. I assumed the Castellanos found you. They offered me $3 billion to go away. Interesting. That's more than your inheritance is currently worth. Why would they offer me more? Because what you inherited isn't just money, Daniel. It's power. Your father owned 15% of Castellano Industries. That makes you the fourth largest shareholder. In certain situations, your vote could swing major decisions. I don't want to swing anything. I don't even want this money. Then take their offer. Is that your advice? My advice is to do what your father wanted. And what he wanted was for you to understand where you came from before you decide where you're going. What does that mean? It means you need to learn about the Castellanos. About the business. About what your father walked away from and why. Webb paused. I'm sending you an address. Go there tomorrow. 9 a.m. Come alone. What's there? The truth. That night, I went home to my apartment in Brooklyn. My normal, regular apartment with IKEA furniture and dishes in the sink. My life from 24 hours ago. I sat on my couch and Googled my family. The Castellanos were everywhere. Society pages. Business news. Charity galas. They were American royalty. Antonio Castellano, my grandfather, had died in 1998. According to his obituary, he was survived by his 3 children, Victoria Sr., James Sr., and Michael. Michael. That had to be my father. But the obituary didn't mention Robert or any name change. I dug deeper. I found an old news article from 1985. Castellano heir missing, family offers reward. The article was about Michael Castellano, age 23, who had disappeared from the family estate. His father Antonio had offered $100,000 for information on his whereabouts. There was a photo. Young man, early 20s, dark hair, intense eyes. It was definitely my father. But what struck me was what Antonio Castellano had said. My son is troubled. He's made accusations about the family business that are unfounded and dangerous. We want him home safe so he can get the help he needs. Accusations? What accusations? I searched more but couldn't find anything else. Whatever happened in 1985 had been buried deep. At midnight, I got an email from Marcus Webb with an address in Brooklyn. An old warehouse district near the waterfront. The email said, 9 a.m. Come alone. Your father left something for you. I barely slept. Questions churned through my mind. What did my father walk away from? Why did he hide me from his family? What was he so sorry about? The next morning, I took an Uber to the address. It was an old brick warehouse, no signage, no indication of what it was. Marcus Webb was waiting outside. Mr. Carter. Thank you for coming. What is this place? Your father's storage unit. He's been renting it for 35 years. No one knows about it except me. Come on. He led me inside. The warehouse was mostly empty except for one unit in the back, secured with multiple locks. Webb opened them one by one, then pushed open the heavy door. Inside was a room maybe 20 by 20 feet. The walls were covered with documents, photos, newspaper clippings. String connecting different pieces like a conspiracy theorist's dream. In the center was a desk with boxes of files. What is this? I whispered. Your father's investigation. For 35 years, he's been documenting everything. Documenting what? Webb walked to one wall and pointed to a photo. Antonio Castellano, my grandfather, shaking hands with a man in a suit. Your grandfather built Castellano Industries into an empire. But he didn't do it through honest business. He did it through bribes, extortion, fraud, and in at least 4 cases that your father could prove murder. I felt like I'd been punched. What? In 1983, a labor organizer named Thomas Brennan tried to unionize one of the Castellano factories. 2 weeks later, he died in a hit-and-run. The police said it was an accident. Your father found evidence that it was ordered by Antonio. Webb moved to another section. In 1984, A journalist named Sarah Chun was investigating Castellano Industries for dumping toxic waste. She died in a house fire. Again, officially an accident. Your father found evidence of arson. Jesus Christ. There are 4 deaths your father could prove were connected to Antonio. And dozens more he suspected. Your grandfather was essentially a mob boss who dressed in expensive suits. And my father knew? He found out in 1984. He was 22, working in the company, being groomed to eventually take over. He stumbled onto documents that proved what his father had done. He confronted Antonio. What did Antonio say? He said it was the cost of business. That power requires sacrifice. And that your father would understand when he was older. Webb pointed to another document. Your father tried to go to the police. But the Castellanos had judges, prosecutors, police chiefs on their payroll. No one would listen. So he ran. He ran. Changed his name. Started over. Met your mother. Had you. And spent the next 35 years documenting everything, building a case that couldn't be ignored. Why didn't he ever use it? He was waiting for the right time. And Webb pulled out a letter. He was waiting for you. The letter was in my father's handwriting, dated 3 months ago. Daniel, if you're reading this, I'm dead. And you know the truth about our family. I'm sorry I lied to you. Sorry I pretended to be poor. Sorry I wasn't the father you deserved. But I need you to understand, I didn't leave my family because I was weak. I left because I refused to be complicit in evil. The money you inherited, it's blood money. Every dollar was built on corruption, on deaths, on suffering. The Castellanos will try to buy you out. Don't let them. Because if you sell those shares back to them, you're letting them win. You're letting evil continue. But if you keep the shares, you have power. You have a seat at the table. You can change things from inside. I spent 35 years on the outside, documenting crimes, hoping someone would care. No one did. The system is too corrupt. But you can be inside. You can stop them. I know it's not fair. I know you never asked for this. But Daniel, you're the only person who can make this right. Use the evidence. Use your power. Burn it all down if you have to. I'm sorry I couldn't be brave enough to do it myself. But I believe you can. I love you. I've always loved you. Everything I did was to make sure you'd be the kind of man who could handle this burden. Don't let me down. Dad, I read that letter 3 times. My hands were shaking. This is insane. He expects me to what? Take down one of the most powerful families in America. He expects you to make a choice, Webb said quietly. Take the Castellanos' offer, walk away, live a comfortable life. Or keep the shares, take your seat at the table, and use your power to expose them. They'll destroy me. Probably. They have unlimited resources and no morals. Then why would I do this? Webb met my eyes. Because it's the right thing to do. And because your father believed you were the kind of man who does the right thing, even when it costs everything. I left that warehouse with boxes of evidence and a decision that would change my life forever. The Castellanos had given me 48 hours to accept their offer. I had less than 24 hours left. I spent the day reading through my father's files. The evidence was damning. Decades of corruption, bribery, fraud. Names of judges, politicians, business leaders, all on the Castellano payroll. And the deaths. God, the deaths. Not just 4. My father had documented 17 suspicious deaths connected to Castellano business interests over 40 years. Labor organizers, journalists, whistleblowers, even a federal prosecutor who'd gotten too close. The Castellanos were monsters, and I had the power to stop them. But I also had a life. A simple life. I wasn't a hero. I was a project manager who liked craft beer and basketball. I didn't want to be a crusader. At 10 p.m., my phone rang. Victoria Castellano. Daniel, I hope you've made the right decision. I'm still thinking. Think faster. The offer expires tomorrow at noon. After that, we go to war. And trust me, you don't want to go to war with us. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Actually, I do. I've been reading about my grandfather. About the bodies buried to build his empire. Silence. Then, I don't know what lies Robert told you. Not lies. Evidence. Documents. Proof. Daniel, you're making a mistake. Whatever Robert collected means nothing. We have lawyers who can make anything disappear. We'll see. I hung up. At 11 p.m., I called Marcus Webb. I've made my decision. And I'm keeping the shares. I'm taking my seat on the board. And I'm going to burn them down from the inside. Webb was quiet for a moment. You're sure? Because once you start this, there's no going back. They will come after you with everything they have. I'm sure. My father spent 35 years being afraid. I'm done being afraid. Then we begin tomorrow. I'll file the documents. You'll officially become a board member. Your first board meeting is in 3 days. What do I need to do? Survive. And Daniel, don't go anywhere alone. Don't eat or drink anything you didn't prepare yourself. Don't trust anyone. The Castellanos play for keeps. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment and realized what I'd just done. I'd declared war on one of the most powerful families in America. And I had no idea if I was brave enough to see it through. The Castellano Industries headquarters was in Midtown Manhattan, a gleaming 50-story tower with the company name in gold letters. I stood outside for 5 minutes, gathering courage. Marcus Webb had prepared me as much as possible. He'd given me briefing documents, financial reports, business strategies. He'd explained my rights as a shareholder and board member. But nothing could prepare me for walking into a room full of people who saw me as an enemy. The security guard checked my ID 3 times, like he couldn't believe I was really supposed to be there. Finally, he directed me to the 48th floor. The elevator ride felt eternal. When the doors opened, I was in a reception area that screamed old money. Original artwork, antique furniture, thick carpets that swallowed sound. A receptionist looked up. Mr. Carter? Yes. The board is waiting. Conference room A. Through those doors. I walked through the doors into the most intimidating room I'd ever seen. 20-foot ceilings. A table that could seat 30 people. Windows overlooking Manhattan. And at that table, 12 people in expensive suits, all staring at me. Victoria was at the head of the table. James and Anthony sat on either side of her. The rest I didn't recognize. Daniel. Victoria's voice was ice. So glad you could join us. Please sit. There was an empty chair at the far end of the table. The symbolic placement wasn't subtle. I was the outsider, literally and figuratively. I sat down. Let's get started, Victoria said. For those who haven't met him, this is Daniel Carter, Robert's son. He's recently inherited Robert's shares, making him our newest board member. The others nodded politely, but I could feel their hostility. Now then, Victoria continued, we have several items on the agenda. First, the proposed merger with Hampton Industries. James, if you could present. Actually, I interrupted. I have something to say first. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Daniel, this is your first board meeting. Perhaps you should observe before. I'll observe after I say what I came to say. Silence. Everyone was staring at me. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I forced my voice steady. My father left me more than just shares. He left me 35 years of documentation. Evidence of bribes, fraud, extortion. Evidence of 17 suspicious deaths connected to this company and this family. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Daniel, Victoria said quietly, I think you should sit down. No, you need to hear this. All of you. I looked around the table. Some of you might be innocent. You might not know what this company was built on. But the Castellanos know. They've always known. James stood up. This is outrageous. Those are serious allegations. They're not allegations. They're facts. Documented facts. And I'm prepared to release everything to the FBI, the SEC, and the media unless things change. You're threatening us? Anthony looked incredulous. You walk in here, some nobody from Brooklyn, and you threaten us? I'm not threatening you. I'm promising you. Either this company starts operating ethically, or I burn it down. Victoria laughed. Actually laughed. Daniel, you have no idea what you're doing. You can't just walk in here and... Yes, I can. I own 15% of this company. That makes me a major shareholder. And under corporate bylaws, I have the right to call for an ethics investigation, demand an independent audit, and if necessary, sue the board for breach of fiduciary duty. Marcus had taught me well. An older man at the table spoke up. Mr. Carter, I'm Richard Moss, CFO. I've been with this company for 20 years. I assure you, everything we do is within legal bounds. Really? Then you won't mind an audit by an independent firm. Richard's face paled. Or, I continued, we can discuss the $50 million in consulting fees paid to shell companies in the Cayman Islands last year. I'm sure those are completely legitimate. Dead silence. How did you? James started. My father was an accountant. A very good one. He taught me how to read between the lines of financial statements. That was a lie. Marcus had found those payments. But they didn't need to know that. Victoria stood up slowly. Everyone else, leave us. Family meeting. The other board members practically ran out of the room. When the door closed, Victoria walked toward me. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. We'll see. No, Daniel. You don't understand. This isn't a game. This isn't some movie where the hero exposes the bad guys and everyone claps. This is real life. And in real life, people who threaten the Castellanos disappear. Like Thomas Brennan? Like Sarah Chin? Victoria's face went pale. I don't know what Robert told you. He didn't tell me anything. He died before he could. But he left evidence. Proof that Antonio Castellano ordered at least 4 murders. And proof that this generation of Castellanos knows about it and covered it up. James slammed his fist on the table. Our father was a great man. He built this company from nothing. He built it on corpses. You self-righteous little. James lunged at me. Anthony grabbed him. Not here. Not now. I backed toward the door. I'm leaving now. But I'll be back for the next board meeting. And every meeting after that. Until this company operates ethically, or until I shut it down. Your choice. Daniel, Victoria said, her voice deadly calm. If you leave this building with those files, if you go to the authorities, you won't just destroy this company. You'll destroy yourself too. What does that mean? It means that money you inherited? It's blood money, like you said. Which makes you complicit. The moment you accepted that inheritance, you became part of this. You can't expose us without exposing yourself. My stomach dropped. She was right. I hadn't thought this through. The FBI doesn't care about your intentions, Victoria continued. They'll see you as a Castellano who inherited a fortune built on crime. They'll freeze your assets, charge you as an accessory. You'll spend years in court, maybe decades in prison. That's a risk I'm willing to take. Really? Because I know about your ex-wife. Melissa, right? And your daughter. My blood ran cold. I don't have a daughter. Not yet. But Melissa is 4 months pregnant. Didn't know that, did you? Victoria smiled. She hasn't told you yet. But she will. And then you'll have a choice, be a father or be a martyr. You can't be both. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Melissa was pregnant? How do you know that? We know everything, Daniel. We've had people watching you since the moment Robert died. We know where you live, where you work, who you love. And if you threaten us, we'll use every piece of leverage we have. You're threatening my unborn child? I'm reminding you that actions have consequences. Not just for you. For everyone you love. I stood there, shaking with rage and fear. Get out, James said. Before we call security. I walked out of that conference room, through the elevator, out of the building. I made it 2 blocks before I had to sit down on a bench. My legs wouldn't hold me anymore. They knew about Melissa. They knew about the baby. They would hurt them if I didn't back down. My phone rang. Marcus Webb. How did it go? They threatened my family. I was afraid of that. Daniel, I think you need to reconsider. No. If I back down now, they win. They keep killing, keep corrupting, keep destroying lives. I can't let that happen. Even if it costs you everything? Even then. I hung up and immediately called Melissa. Dan? Hi, I was just about to call you. Are you pregnant? Silence. Then, how did you know? Answer the question. Yes. I'm 4 months along. I was going to tell you this weekend. I needed time to process it first. Dan, I know we're divorced, but this baby. You need to leave the city. Today. What? Why? I told her everything. The inheritance, the Castellanos, the threats. Oh my God, Dan. This is insane. I know. But they're serious. You need to go somewhere safe. Out of state. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Dan, I'm not leaving. This is my home. My job. Melissa, please. They killed people. They'll hurt you to get to me. I heard her breath catch. You really think they'd hurt a pregnant woman? I think they'd do whatever it takes to protect their empire. She was quiet for a long moment. Okay. I'll go to my sister's in Colorado. But Dan, promise me you'll be careful. I promise. After I hung up, I sat on that bench and realized how alone I was. My father was dead. Melissa was leaving. I had no siblings, few close friends. I was taking on a billion-dollar empire by myself. But I'd made a choice. And I had to see it through. That night, I went back to my apartment. I packed a bag. Marcus had advised me not to stay in one place too long. At 11 p.m., I heard something. A sound in the hallway. Footsteps. I looked through the peephole. 2 men in suits standing outside my door. They weren't trying to hide. They wanted me to know they were there. I called 911. There are men outside my apartment. I think they're going to hurt me. The operator took my information. Police are on their way. Stay inside, lock your doors. 5 minutes later, I heard sirens. The men disappeared. When the police arrived, I explained what was happening. They looked at me like I was paranoid. Mr. Carter, there's no one here. Are you sure you saw someone? Yes. 2 men in suits. Could have been neighbors. Could have been delivery guys. They left. And I knew the Castellanos had gotten to them too. Or at least, the police weren't going to help me. I grabbed my bag and left. I checked into a hotel under a fake name, paid cash. At 2 a.m., I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my father's files and started reading again. That's when I found it. A document I'd missed before. A letter from 1984, written by my grandfather Antonio to someone named the Senator. Dear friend, thank you for your continued support in Washington. The environmental regulations you helped block will save us millions. As discussed, the funds have been transferred to your usual account. I've also taken care of that journalist problem we discussed. Sarah Chun will no longer be investigating our waste management practices. Our business relationship has been most profitable for both of us. I look forward to many more years of cooperation. Regards, Antonio Castellano. I checked the date. 2 weeks later, Sarah Chun died in that house fire. This wasn't just corporate corruption. This went to the highest levels of government. I took a photo of the letter and sent it to Marcus. Then I sent it to myself on 3 different email accounts. If something happened to me, this evidence couldn't disappear. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Last chance, take the money and disappear. Or we'll make you disappear. You have 24 hours. I stared at that text. This was it. The final ultimatum. I could take their money, protect Melissa and the baby, live a comfortable life. Or I could fight, risk everything, probably lose. What would my father want me to do? I thought about that letter he'd left me. Don't let me down. I thought about all those people who died because the Castellanos put profit over human life. I thought about the baby I didn't even know about yet. What kind of world did I want them to grow up in? I typed my response. No. Come at me with everything you have. I'm not backing down. I hit send. And then I waited for the war to begin. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. 3 from Marcus Webb. 5 from unknown numbers. And 9 from a contact labeled Special Agent Morrison, FBI. FBI? I called Marcus first. Daniel, thank God. Where are you? A hotel. What's going on? The Castellanos filed a complaint with the FBI claiming you're attempting extortion. They say you're threatening to release fabricated documents unless they pay you $500 million. That's insane. I never asked for money. I know. But they have emails, text messages, recorded phone calls. All faked, obviously, but convincing enough to open an investigation. So what do I do? Call Agent Morrison. Cooperate fully. And Daniel, don't mention the documents yet. Not until we know if the FBI is compromised. You think the FBI is on their payroll? Your grandfather's letter mentioned the senator. If they bought a senator in 1984, who else have they bought since then? I called Agent Morrison. Mr. Carter, this is Special Agent Jennifer Morrison with the FBI. We need to speak with you regarding allegations of extortion and fraud. The Castellanos are lying. I never asked them for money. That's what we'd like to discuss. Can you come to our field office? Today. Am I under arrest? Not at this time. But cooperation would be in your best interest. I agreed to meet her at 2 p.m. Marcus met me outside the FBI building in Manhattan. Remember, say as little as possible. Don't volunteer information. And if they ask about your father's documents, say you need to consult with your attorney, me, before answering. Inside, Agent Morrison was exactly what I expected. Early 40s, professional, sharp eyes that missed nothing. She led us to an interrogation room, interview room. Mr. Carter, you've inherited a significant fortune from your father, Robert Carter, formerly Robert Castellano. Is that correct? Yes. And you attended a board meeting at Castellano Industries 3 days ago? Yes. What did you discuss at that meeting? I looked at Marcus. He nodded slightly. I informed the board that I had concerns about the company's business practices. What kind of concerns? Ethical concerns. Financial irregularities. And did you threaten to expose these irregularities unless the Castellanos paid you money? No. I never asked for money. Agent Morrison slid a piece of paper across the table. This is a text message from your phone to Victoria Castellano. It says, and I quote, "Pay me $500 million by Friday or I release everything to the media." I stared at the text. I never sent that. It's from your phone number. Then they spoofed it. Or hacked my phone. I don't know how they did it, but I didn't send it. Mr. Carter, we also have a recorded phone call between you and James Castellano where you explicitly demand payment. That's impossible. I stopped. Can I hear the recording? Morrison played it. A voice that sounded exactly like mine. James, I'm done playing games. $500 million or I go to the press. You have until Friday. It was my voice. My cadence. But I'd never said those words. That's not me. It's a very good impression then. It's AI, Marcus said suddenly. Voice cloning technology. Anyone with enough audio samples can create a fake recording that sounds exactly like someone else. That's convenient, Morrison said dryly. Agent Morrison, I said, why would I extort them? I already inherited $2.7 billion. Why would I risk prison for $500 million more? Maybe you're greedy. Maybe you're angry. Maybe you want revenge on a family that abandoned you. Or maybe they're framing me because I threatened to expose their crimes. What crimes? I looked at Marcus. He shook his head slightly, not yet. I'd like to consult with my attorney before answering that. Morrison leaned back. Mr. Carter, if you have evidence of criminal activity, now is the time to share it. Otherwise, you look like someone making baseless accusations to justify extortion. I need to speak with my attorney. Privately. Morrison left the room. Should I tell her? I asked Marcus. Not yet. We don't know if she's legitimate or if she's been compromised. The Castellanos have had 40 years to build connections in law enforcement. So what do? We wait. If they arrest you, we'll release everything. But until then, we hold back. Morrison came back 15 minutes later. Mr. Carter, you're free to go for now. But don't leave the city. We'll be in touch. Outside the FBI building, Marcus pulled me aside. We need to go on offense. The Castellanos are controlling the narrative. We need to flip the script. How? We leak the documents. Not to the FBI, to the press. Multiple outlets at once. Make it impossible to suppress. When? Tomorrow. I'll set up meetings with the New York Times, Washington Post, and Wall Street Journal. You'll tell your story. Show them the evidence. Let them verify it and publish. The Castellanos will come after me even harder. Yes. But once the story is public, it's harder for you to disappear. You become a public figure. That's your protection. That night, I stayed in a different hotel. I was moving every night now, never in the same place twice. At 10 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello. Daniel. It's Uncle James. Uncle. The word felt wrong. What do you want? To talk. Off the record. Just you and me. So you can threaten me again? No. So I can tell you the truth. About your father. About what really happened in 1985. I know what happened. He discovered Antonio was a murderer and ran away. That's what Robert told you. But it's not the whole story. Meet me. 1 hour. There's a diner in Queens, Murphy's on 44th Street. Come alone. So you can kill me? Daniel, if we wanted you dead, you'd be dead already. We want to make a deal. A real deal, not the bullshit Victoria offered. 1 hour. He hung up. I called Marcus. James wants to meet. Says he'll tell me the truth about my father. It's a trap. Probably. But what if it's not? What if there's more to this story? Then he can tell you over the phone. He wants to meet in person. A public place. Marcus was silent for a moment. If you go, I'm coming with you. And I'm bringing security. An hour later, we pulled up to Murphy's Diner in Queens. Marcus had hired 2 ex-military guys as bodyguards. They swept the diner first, then nodded. All clear. James was sitting in a back booth, alone. He looked older than he had at the board meeting. Tired. Daniel. Thank you for coming. He glanced at Marcus and the bodyguards. I said alone. And I said you tried to frame me for extortion. So they stay. James nodded. Fair enough. Sit. I sat across from him. Talk. Your father wasn't a hero, Daniel. He wasn't some whistleblower who discovered his father's crimes and nobly walked away. I have evidence. Of some things, yes. But not everything. James leaned forward. In 1984, Robert was working in the company's accounting department. He did discover some irregularities. Financial crimes, bribes, yes. But he didn't walk away. He tried to blackmail Antonio. That's a lie. Is it? Your father demanded $10 million to keep quiet. Antonio refused. They fought. Robert threatened to go to the police. So Antonio called his bluff. He told Robert to do it, knowing the police wouldn't help. Then why did Robert run? Because he realized he was wrong about something important. He thought Antonio had ordered those deaths, the labor organizer, the journalist. But he hadn't. I stared at him. What? Our father was corrupt, yes. He bribed officials, cooked books, evaded taxes. But he wasn't a killer. Robert was so convinced Antonio was evil that he saw murder where there were only accidents. Sarah Chun died in a house fire caused by faulty wiring. There was an investigation. It was accidental. The letter. I have a letter from Antonio talking about taking care of the journalist problem. Yes, by paying her editor to kill the story. Not by killing her. James pulled out a file. Here's the fire marshal's report. Here's the electrical inspector's findings. Here's the medical examiner's conclusion. Accidental death. I took the documents. They looked legitimate. What about Thomas Brennan? Hit-and-run driver was caught 3 weeks later. Drunk driver, unconnected to our family. He confessed. He's still in prison. James pulled out more documents. Police reports, court records, conviction papers. Your father wanted Antonio to be a monster so badly that he manufactured evidence. He took real corruption and added imaginary murders to make Antonio into a supervillain. Why would he do that? Because he was angry. Antonio was a hard man, a demanding father. Robert felt unloved, unappreciated. So when he found evidence of crimes, he saw his chance to be the hero, to bring down the bad father and prove he was better. But Antonio offered a reward for him. The news article. Because we loved him. Because despite everything, Antonio wanted his son back. James's eyes were wet. Robert was troubled, Daniel. Paranoid. He saw conspiracies everywhere. And when Antonio wouldn't give him the money, Robert ran. Changed his name. Started over. And spent 35 years building a mythology about what a terrible family he'd escaped from. I felt sick. You're lying. Am I? Look at the evidence. Real evidence, not your father's conspiracy theories. James pushed the stack of documents toward me. Every death he blamed on our family? Investigated by police, determined to be accidental or solved with an arrest. Every murder he claims Antonio ordered? Fantasy. The bribes were real. The financial crimes were real. We don't deny that. Antonio cut corners, bent rules, paid off officials. But Daniel, that's just business. Every major company does it. It's not right, but it's not murder. Then why did you threaten me? Why did you frame me for extortion? Because you walked into a board meeting and accused us of being killers. You threatened to destroy a company that employs 50,000 people based on your father's delusions. What were we supposed to do? I didn't know what to believe anymore. Here's the truth, James continued. We're not perfect. We've done things we're not proud of. But we're not the monsters Robert painted us as. And you're not some crusader exposing evil. You're a confused man who inherited blood money. But only blood in the metaphorical sense. What do you want from me? Drop this. Take the $3 billion. Walk away. Let us run the company. Or stay on the board if you want. Help us do better. We're willing to reform, to operate more ethically. But this vendetta based on lies? It has to stop. I need time to think. Take the night. But Daniel, if you go to the press with those documents tomorrow, we'll sue you for defamation. We'll prove every claim is false. We'll destroy you financially and legally. And we'll win because the truth is on our side. James stood up. We're family whether you like it or not. And I'm asking you, as your uncle, don't make this worse than it has to be. He left. I sat there, staring at the documents he'd left behind. Marcus picked one up. These look legitimate. Could they be faked? Maybe. But Daniel, these are official police reports. Fire marshal documents. Court records. If these are fake, the Castellanos have corrupted entire government agencies. Or my father was wrong. The thought was devastating. What if everything I'd believed was a lie? What if my father wasn't a hero but a delusional man who'd ruined his life over fantasy? I spent that night reading through both sets of documents. My father's evidence and James's counter-evidence. The more I read, the more confused I became. Some of what James said made sense. Some of the deaths really did look accidental when you read the official reports. But something felt wrong. The timing. The coincidences. For people who threatened Castellano Industries, all dead within months. All ruled accidental. At 3 a.m., I found something. A small detail in the fire marshal's report about Sarah Chin. The report said the fire started at 2:47 a.m. due to faulty wiring in the bedroom. But there was a witness statement from a neighbor who said they saw Sarah leave her apartment at 2:30 a.m., 17 minutes before the fire started. If Sarah left before the fire, how did she die in it? I checked the medical examiner's report. Time of death, between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Caused smoke inhalation. But the fire started at 2:47 a.m. and Sarah left at 2:30 a.m., which meant either the witness was wrong, or the fire marshal was wrong, or Sarah Chen was already dead before the fire started. I called Marcus. I found something. At 3 a.m., the documents James gave us. There's a discrepancy. I think the reports were altered. Are you sure? No. But I'm going to find out. Where's that journalist who died? Sarah Chen? Where's she buried? Daniel, what are you thinking? I'm thinking we need to exhume the body. Because if she was dead before the fire started, that means murder. Which means my father was right. You can't just exhume a body. You need court orders, family permission. Then we get them. Marcus, if I'm wrong, I'll take the money and disappear. But if I'm right, if my father was right, then the Castellanos are everything he said they were. And I have to stop them. Okay, Marcus said quietly. I'll start making calls. But Daniel, if we do this and you're wrong, then I'm the crazy son of a crazy father, and the Castellanos win. And if you're right, then they're going down. All of them. I hung up and looked at the photo on my phone. My father, from years ago, smiling at the camera. I'm going to find the truth, Dad, I whispered. Even if it destroys me. Because that's what he would have wanted. That's what he spent 35 years trying to do. And I wasn't going to let him down. Getting permission to exhume Sarah Chen's body took 3 days and involved more lawyers than I knew existed. Sarah's sister, Linda Chen, was initially opposed. My sister has been at peace for 40 years. Why disturb her now? Because I don't think her death was an accident, I told her over the phone. I think she was murdered. And if I'm right, the people who killed her are still out there. There was a long silence. Then, the fire marshal said it was faulty wiring. I know. But there's a witness who saw your sister leave her apartment 17 minutes before the fire started. Which means she shouldn't have been inside when it happened. What are you saying? I'm saying someone might have killed her, put her body back in the apartment, and started the fire to cover it up. Linda was quiet for a long time. Who are you? My name is Daniel Carter. My father tried to investigate your sister's death 40 years ago. No one would listen to him. I'm asking you to let me finish what he started. Why should I trust you? Because if I'm wrong, we rebury your sister, and I publicly apologize for disturbing her rest. But if I'm right, we get her justice. After 40 years, don't you want to know the truth? She agreed. The exhumation was scheduled for early morning, before the cemetery opened to the public. Marcus arranged for an independent forensic pathologist, Dr. Rachel Kim, to examine the remains. I didn't sleep the night before. This was it. If I was wrong, I'd look like a conspiracy theorist chasing ghosts. The Castellanos would sue me, destroy my credibility, and win. But if I was right, at 6 a.m., I met Marcus and Dr. Kim at Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn. Linda Chen was there too, a woman in her 60s with her sister's eyes. Thank you for doing this, I told her. Don't thank me yet. If you're wrong, I'll never forgive you for disturbing Sarah. The cemetery workers had already dug down to the casket. It took 4 men to lift it out of the ground. Dr. Kim examined the casket. It's in good condition. The seal looks intact. They opened it carefully. Inside were skeletal remains, remarkably well preserved in the sealed casket. Dr. Kim spent an hour doing a preliminary examination right there in the cemetery while the rest of us waited. Finally, she stood up. I need to take the remains to my lab for a full analysis. But I can tell you this, there's a fracture on the hyoid bone. What does that mean? Linda asked. The hyoid bone is in the throat. Fractures to it are commonly associated with manual strangulation. It's one of the key indicators of murder by choking. My heart was pounding. Could the fracture have been caused by the fire? By falling debris? Unlikely. The pattern is consistent with compression from fingers, not blunt force trauma. Dr. Kim looked at me. If I had to give a preliminary opinion, I'd say this woman was strangled before the fire started. Linda Chun started crying. Someone killed her. Someone actually killed my sister. I'm sorry, I said quietly. Don't be sorry. Find them. Find who did this. Dr. Kim took the remains to her lab. Marcus, Linda, and I went to a nearby diner to wait for the full report. What happens now? Linda asked. If Dr. Kim confirms murder, we go to the FBI with evidence, Marcus said. They'll have to reopen the investigation. And what about the Castellanos? That depends on what else we find. My phone rang. Agent Morrison. Mr. Carter, I heard you exhumed Sarah Chen's body. How did you? I'm the FBI. It's my job to know. What did you find? Evidence of strangulation. Before the fire. Morrison was quiet. That contradicts the original investigation. Because the original investigation was wrong. Or corrupted. That's a serious accusation. I have serious evidence. We can meet this afternoon. I'll be there. While we waited, I went through my father's files again. Sarah Chen wasn't the only suspicious death. There was Thomas Brennan, the labor organizer. According to James, he was killed by a drunk driver who confessed. I pulled up the case files my father had collected. The drunk driver was a man named Michael Sullivan. He'd confessed to the hit and run, was convicted, and served 15 years. But I noticed something odd. Sullivan had no prior record. Not even a speeding ticket. Then suddenly he runs someone over while drunk? I searched for Sullivan's current whereabouts. He'd been released from prison 10 years ago, did his parole, and disappeared from public records. Marcus, can your investigators find someone? Depends on who. Michael Sullivan. The guy who supposedly killed Thomas Brennan. What do you need him for? Because I want to hear his confession in person. My father's notes say Sullivan confessed immediately, didn't even get a lawyer. That doesn't make sense for someone with no criminal history. You think he was paid to take the fall? I think it's worth asking. Marcus made some calls. 2 hours later, he had an address. Michael Sullivan was living in Florida, working as a janitor. I'll fly down there tomorrow, I said. Not alone you won't. I'm coming with you. At 2 p.m., Agent Morrison arrived at the diner. Show me what you've got, she said. I laid it all out. The discrepancy in the fire marshal's report. The witness statement. The exhumation results showing strangulation. Morrison listened carefully. This is compelling. But it doesn't prove the Castellanos were involved. My father documented payments from Antonio Castellano to officials around the same time as Sarah Chen's death. Payments don't prove murder. No, but they establish motive and means. Sarah Chen was investigating the company. Antonio had the resources to make her disappear. And now we know she was murdered. Morrison tapped her pen on the table. I'll need to see all of your father's documentation. Everything. Why? Because if what you're saying is true, this isn't just about Sarah Chen. This is about systematic corruption and possible multiple murders over decades. That's a RICO case. Organized crime. So you believe me? Morrison met my eyes. I believe there are questions that need answers. But Mr. Carter, if you're fabricating this to get back at the Castellanos for some family grudge, you'll go to prison for obstruction of justice. I'm not fabricating anything. Then you won't mind if we verify everything independently. Verify away. I gave Morrison copies of everything. She left with 3 boxes of documents. Linda Chen grabbed my hand. Thank you. For my sister. For not letting them get away with it. Thank you for trusting me. That night, Marcus and I flew to Florida. We landed in Tampa at 11 p.m. and drove to the address his investigator had found. Michael Sullivan lived in a rundown apartment complex near the airport. We knocked on his door at 8 a.m. the next morning. A man in his 60s answered. Gray hair, weathered face, tired eyes. Michael Sullivan? Who's asking? My name is Daniel Carter. I want to talk to you about Thomas Brennan. His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. The labor organizer you ran over in 1984. You confessed. Went to prison for 15 years. That was a long time ago. I paid my debt. Did you? Or did someone pay you to take the fall? Get away from my door. Mr. Sullivan, I'm not the police. I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I just want the truth. The truth is I was drunk and I killed a man. Now leave me alone. He tried to close the door. I stuck my foot in it. How much did they pay you? I don't know what. The Castellanos. How much did they pay you to confess to a murder you didn't commit? Sullivan's face crumbled. You can't prove anything. I don't need to prove it. I just need you to tell me the truth. After all these years, don't you want to finally be honest? He stared at me for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. Come in. But I'm not saying anything on record. We sat in his small living room. It smelled like cigarettes and regret. They paid me $250,000, Sullivan said quietly. Gave it to my mother. Told me if I kept my mouth shut and took the fall, she'd be taken care of for life. Who approached you? A lawyer. Never got his name. He said there'd been an accident, someone important hit Brennan, and they needed someone to take responsibility. Said I'd serve maybe 10 years with good behavior, and my mother would never have to worry about money again. And you agreed? My mother was dying of cancer. Couldn't afford treatment. They paid for everything, doctors, hospitals, experimental treatments. She lived 5 more years because of that money. He wiped his eyes. Was it wrong? Hell yes. Did I have a choice? Not really. Did you kill Thomas Brennan? No. I was at a bar when it happened. 40 people saw me. But the Castellanos made those witnesses disappear. Paid them off or scared them off. By the time I confessed, there was no one left to contradict the story. Will you testify to that? Sullivan laughed bitterly. And end up like Brennan? Like Sarah Chin? No thank you. I did my time. I'm keeping my head down. They killed those people. And they'll kill me too if I talk. You think I don't know that? They've had people checking on me for 40 years. Making sure I keep quiet. Even now, there's a guy who lives 2 doors down, watches my every move. You coming here? He's already reported it. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Victoria Castellano's voice. Daniel, what are you doing in Tampa? My blood went cold. How do you know I'm in Tampa? I know where you are every moment of every day. I know you went to see Michael Sullivan. And I know what he told you. He told me you paid him to confess to a murder he didn't commit. He told you the ramblings of an ex-con trying to rewrite history. No one will believe him. The FBI will. The FBI, Victoria laughed, works for us. Do you really think Agent Morrison is going to help you? She's been on our payroll for 8 years. I felt sick. You're lying. Am I? Ask her about the $2 million in her offshore account. Ask her about her house in the Hamptons. Ask her how a civil servant on a $150,000 salary affords a lifestyle worth millions. You're saying the entire FBI is corrupt? Not the entire FBI. Just the parts that matter. The agents who investigate financial crimes. The prosecutors who could file charges. The judges who would hear cases. Daniel, we've been building this protection for 60 years. You can't tear it down in 2 weeks. I'll find someone who's not corrupt. Good luck with that. She hung up. I looked at Marcus. Morrison's on their payroll. Are you sure? Victoria just told me. She has no reason to lie, she's bragging. Then we can't trust the FBI. We need to go higher. Justice Department. Congress. Someone. Or, Marcus said slowly, we go to the media. Make this so public that no amount of corruption can suppress it. I thought about it. The press conference. Tomorrow. We release everything. The exhumation results, Sullivan's confession, all of Dad's documents. Multiple outlets simultaneously. Sullivan grabbed my arm. Don't. You'll get yourself killed. You'll get me killed. Or I'll expose them so completely that killing us would only prove we're right. You're naive if you think that matters. Powerful people don't face consequences. I looked at this broken man who'd spent 40 years living a lie to protect his mother. Maybe not usually, I said. But sometimes they do. Sometimes justice actually happens. And I have to believe this is one of those times. We left Tampa that night. On the flight back, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Victoria's words. No one will believe him. She was right. Sullivan's confession meant nothing without corroboration. And Dr. Kim's findings about Sarah Chun, while suspicious, weren't definitive proof the Castellanos ordered the murder. I needed something more. Something undeniable. Marcus, my father collected evidence for 35 years. There has to be something in there we missed. Something concrete. Like what? I don't know. A recording. Photos. A witness who's still alive. Something. When we landed in New York at 2 a.m., there was a car waiting. Not our car. A black SUV with tinted windows. 2 men in suits got out. Daniel Carter? Marcus Webb? Please come with us. Who are you? Marcus demanded. They showed badges. FBI. We have a warrant for Mr. Carter's arrest. Charges of extortion, fraud, and obstruction of justice. This is bullshit, I said. You're working for the Castellanos. Sir, please don't resist. Come peacefully and this will be easier. They put handcuffs on me right there in the airport parking lot. Marcus was on his phone immediately. I'm calling every lawyer I know. Don't say anything, Daniel. Not one word. They put me in the back of the SUV. We drove through Manhattan, but we weren't going to FBI headquarters. We were heading to the Castellano building. Where are you taking me? You'll see. They took me up to the 48th floor, to the same conference room where I'd confronted the board. Victoria, James, and Anthony were waiting. The agents left. Just me and my family. Those weren't real FBI agents, were they? I said. Of course not, Victoria smiled. But you believed they were. That's all that matters. You kidnapped me. We invited you to a family meeting. That's all. My lawyer knows where I am. Does he? We jammed his phone signal as soon as you got in the car. As far as Marcus knows, you disappeared. He's probably very worried. I tried to stand. Anthony pushed me back down into the chair. You're going to sit there and listen, Victoria said. Because I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen. You're going to drop this crusade. You're going to take our money. And you're going to disappear. Or what? Or we don't just destroy you. We destroy everyone you love. Melissa, your unborn child. Your mother. Every friend you've ever had. We've done it before. We'll do it again. You can't kill everyone. Watch us. James leaned forward. You think Sarah Chun was the only journalist we silenced? There have been dozens over the years. Reporters, investigators, whistleblowers. Some we paid off. Some we scared off. And some, he smiled, we removed permanently. I'm recording this, I lied. No, you're not. We checked. Your phone is in a Faraday cage in the next room. No signal in or out. Victoria walked over and put her hand on my shoulder. Daniel, I'm going to be honest with you. We don't want to kill you. Your family. Robert's son. Despite everything, that means something. But if you force our hand, we will do what's necessary. My father was right about you. Your father was paranoid and delusional. But you know what? Fine. Let's say he was right. Let's say we've done terrible things. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I'm going to stop you. How? Victoria laughed. The FBI is ours. The local police are ours. The judges are ours. The press? We advertise in every major paper. They won't run stories that hurt their biggest sponsors. You have no power here, Daniel. I have the truth. The truth is worthless without someone to believe it. And we control who gets believed. They let me sit there for an hour, letting their words sink in. Then Victoria made her final offer. $5 billion. Double what we offered before. Plus we'll pay off Melissa, set up a trust for the baby. You'll all be taken care of for life. All you have to do is walk away. And if I don't, then tomorrow morning, you'll wake up in a mental institution. We'll have you committed. Paranoid delusions, conspiracy theories, unstable behavior. 3 doctors will testify that you're a danger to yourself and others. And while you're locked up, drugged up, and unable to communicate with the outside world, we'll have you declared incompetent. Your inheritance will be placed in a trust that we control. And you'll spend the rest of your life in a padded room. You can't do that. We absolutely can. We have the medical reports already prepared. The commitment papers ready to file. By noon tomorrow, you'll be a resident of Brookfield Psychiatric Hospital, and legally, there's nothing you can do about it. I felt true fear for the first time. Last chance, Daniel. Take the money or lose everything. I thought about my father. About 35 years spent collecting evidence, too afraid to use it. About dying with regrets. I thought about Melissa and the baby. About the life we could have with $5 billion. I thought about Sarah Chun, Thomas Brennan, and all the other people the Castellanos had destroyed. No, I said. Victoria's face hardened. No. I'm not taking your money. I'm not walking away. I'm going to burn you down or die trying. Then you're a fool. Maybe. But at least I'm not a monster. Victoria nodded to Anthony. Call Brookfield. Tell them we have a patient. That's when the door burst open. Agent Morrison walked in, followed by a dozen actual FBI agents. Nobody move. FBI. Hands where I can see them. Victoria looked shocked for the first time. What is this? Victoria Castellano, James Castellano, Anthony Castellano, you're under arrest for kidnapping, extortion, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 50 other charges. Morrison looked at me. You okay, Mr. Carter? You're not corrupt? She smiled. No. But we needed the Castellanos to think I was. It was the only way to get them to incriminate themselves. She held up a small device. We've been recording everything. Every threat. Every confession. Every crime. But Victoria said you have an offshore account. Set up by us as part of a sting operation. We've been investigating the Castellanos for 2 years. We just needed someone to shake the tree hard enough to make them fall out. That was you. I stared at her. You used me as bait. We protected you. The agents who brought you here? Our undercover team. We knew the Castellanos would try something after you exhumed Sarah Chen. We just needed to catch them in the act. Victoria's face was pale. This is entrapment. This is justice. You're done, Victoria. All of you are done. As they led the Castellanos away in handcuffs, James looked back at me. You think you've won? We'll be out in 24 hours. Our lawyers are already being arrested, Morrison said. Conspiracy, obstruction of justice. We've been building this case for years. Today was just the first domino. After they were gone, Morrison turned to me. Your father would be proud. He would have done this 35 years ago if anyone had listened. I know, and I'm sorry about that, but you finished what he started. That counts for something. Marcus burst in, out of breath. Daniel, are you okay? They jammed my phone, I couldn't track you. I'm fine. It's over. They're arrested. Marcus hugged me. Actually hugged me. You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you actually did it. But it wasn't over. Not really. Because the next morning, when I woke up in my hotel room, there was an envelope under my door. Inside was a single page, handwritten. Daniel, if you're reading this, the FBI arrested my family. Good. They deserve it. But you need to know something. The Castellanos aren't the only ones involved. There are others. More powerful people. The senator my grandfather wrote to in 1984? He's now the Senate Majority Leader. And he's not happy. They'll come for you. Not directly. But they'll come. Watch your back. Trust no one. And finish what you started. There's one more file. The one your father never showed anyone. The one even Marcus doesn't know about. It's in a safety deposit box at Chase Bank, 5th Avenue and 42nd Street. Box 7249. The key is taped under the bottom drawer of your father's desk at his old apartment. That file will destroy everyone. Use it wisely. Good luck. You'll need it. A friend. I read that note 3 times. There was more. There had always been more. And I was going to find it. I went to my father's old apartment in Queens immediately. The landlord had kept it sealed pending the estate settlement. The apartment looked exactly as he'd left it. Sparse furniture, bare walls, nothing that suggested wealth or power. In the corner was his old desk. I pulled out the bottom drawer, flipped it over, and there it was, a small key taped to the underside. Marcus met me at Chase Bank. You sure about this? He asked as we walked to the vault. No, but I need to know what Dad was protecting. The bank manager led us to box 7249. I inserted the key and pulled out a metal box. Inside was a single USB drive and a letter addressed to me. We went to Marcus's office to open it. He had a secure computer, air-gapped from the internet, specifically for sensitive information. I plugged in the USB drive. It contained one folder, the network. Inside were hundreds of files. Documents, photos, recordings spanning 60 years. And as I started reading, I understood why my father had kept this separate. Why he'd never shown it to anyone. Because it wasn't just about the Castellanos. The first document was a ledger from 1965. Antonio Castellano's handwritten accounts of payments made to various individuals. But these weren't random officials. These were senators, governors, Supreme Court justices. Names I recognized. Some were still in power. The second document was a recorded conversation from 1978. Antonio Castellano and Senator Richard Hayes, who would later become vice president, discussing a bill that would deregulate the manufacturing industry. You get this bill passed, and we'll make sure you're taken care of, Antonio's voice said on the recording. How taken care of? Hayes asked. How does $10 million sound? Plus we'll back your presidential run in 1984. Deal. The bill passed. Hayes got his money. And 15 years later, he was vice president of the United States. There were dozens of recordings like this. Decades of political corruption. Both parties. Multiple administrations. Judges, congressmen, cabinet members, all on the Castellano payroll. But the worst file was labeled Operation Clean Sweep. I opened it. It was a plan, drafted in 1995, detailing how the Castellanos and their political allies would systematically eliminate threats to their network. Journalists, investigators, whistleblowers, even some politicians who'd gotten a conscience. There was a list of 23 names. Next to 17 of them was a date and a method. Car accident. March 15th, 96. Heart attack. July 22nd, 97. Suicide. November 3rd, 98. These people were murdered. All of them. In a coordinated effort spanning decades. And at the bottom of the document, signatures. Not just Antonio Castellano, but Senator Hayes. Federal Judge Morrison, no relation to Agent Morrison. The Attorney General of New York. The head of the SEC. This was bigger than the Castellanos. This was a shadow government. Jesus Christ, Marcus whispered. This is treason, I finished. This is actual conspiracy to undermine democracy. If you release this, it'll destroy the government. Half of Washington will be implicated. Good. Daniel, think about what you're saying. The chaos this would cause is necessary. These people need to be stopped. I read my father's letter. Daniel, if you're reading this, you've already exposed the Castellanos. But now you know the truth. They were just one piece of a much larger puzzle. I discovered this network in 1986, 2 years after I ran. I tried to go to the FBI, but they were compromised. I tried the Justice Department, but they were compromised. I tried the press, but the stories were killed. Everyone was either bought or blackmailed. There was no one to turn to. So I decided to document everything and wait. Wait for the right moment. Wait for someone brave enough to use it. That someone is you. I know this is an impossible burden. I know you never asked for any of this. But Daniel, if you don't do this, who will? This flash drive contains enough evidence to take down half the federal government. Senators, judges, FBI directors, even a former vice president. They're all guilty. They've all been part of this corruption for decades. But I need you to understand something. Releasing this will make you the most hated man in America. Half the country will see you as a hero. The other half will see you as a traitor trying to undermine the government. You'll be investigated, probably arrested. They'll try to discredit you, destroy you. They might even try to kill you. But if you don't do this, if you let them continue, then all those people who died fighting them, Sarah Chun, Thomas Brennan, the 23 names on that list, they died for nothing. The choice is yours. I can't make it for you. But whatever you decide, know that I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to do this myself. Dad. I sat there for a long time, staring at that letter. Marcus broke the silence. What are you going to do? I don't know. If I release this, I destroy the government. Parts of it. The corrupt parts. But what replaces it? Chaos? Anarchy? What if the cure is worse than the disease? Or what if the disease is killing democracy and this is the only cure? My phone rang. Agent Morrison. Daniel, we have a problem. What kind of problem? The Castellanos made bail. What? How? A federal judge granted it. Said they weren't flight risks. They're out as of an hour ago. Which judge? Judge Thomas Morrison. I checked the file. Judge Thomas Morrison. On the Castellano payroll since 1992. They got to him, I said. I know. And Daniel, there's more. The charges might get dropped. The DA is saying the evidence was obtained improperly. That the sting operation violated their rights. That's bullshit. It's corruption. And without the arrest holding, they're going to come after you again. Harder this time. I hung up and looked at Marcus. They're out. The whole system is protecting them. Then use the file. Release everything. It's the only way. It'll destroy the country. It'll save the country. There's a difference. I thought about my father, spending 35 years too afraid to act. About Sarah Chun, who died investigating corruption. About my unborn child, who would grow up in whatever world I created with this choice. I made my decision. Set up a press conference. Tomorrow. Every major outlet. And Marcus? Make sure it's live streamed. Once it's out there, they can't suppress it. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about what I was about to do. The chaos it would cause. The lives it would ruin. But also the lives it might save. The corruption it would expose. The system it might actually fix. At 3 a.m., Victoria called. Daniel, I know you have more files. The network knows too. How do you know about the network? Because we're part of it, obviously. And they want you to know something. If you release those files, you won't just destroy us. You'll destroy yourself too. How? Because one of the names in those files? Your father. Robert Castellano didn't just walk away in 1985. He stole $50 million from the company first. That's how he funded his new life. That's how he paid for your childhood, your education, everything. You're living off stolen money, Daniel. Which makes you complicit. My stomach dropped. You're lying. Check the files. It's all there. Robert was as corrupt as the rest of us. He just got cold feet and ran. She hung up. I pulled up the files again, searching. And there, buried in the 1985 financial records, I found it. A transfer of $50 million from Castellano Industries to an offshore account. Authorized by Robert Castellano. Date, March 15, 1985. 2 weeks before he disappeared. My father had stolen the money. Everything I'd been fighting for, every moral stand I'd taken, it was built on theft. On the same corruption I was trying to expose. I called Marcus. Did you know? Know what? That my father stole $50 million when he left. Silence. Then, yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because it doesn't matter. Yes, he took money he wasn't entitled to. But he was owed that money. He'd worked for the company for years. He was a shareholder. And more importantly, he used that money to build a life away from corruption, not to profit from it. But I'm living off that money. My inheritance is yours, legally and morally. Your father's choices don't define you, Daniel. Your choices do. If I release these files, they'll destroy me with this. They'll say I'm just a hypocrite who profited from the same corruption I'm exposing. So what? You think the truth stops being true because the messenger is imperfect? Everyone's imperfect, Daniel. The question is, are you brave enough to do the right thing anyway? The press conference was at 10 a.m. in the Grand Hyatt Ballroom. Every major network was there. Hundreds of journalists. Cameras everywhere. I stood at the podium, USB drive in my pocket, knowing this was the point of no return. My name is Daniel Carter. 2 weeks ago, my father died and left me $2.7 billion. I thought he was poor. I was wrong. But I was also wrong about something else. I thought he was a hero who walked away from corruption. The truth is more complicated. I paused. My father stole $50 million when he left his family's company. He used that money to build a new life. To raise me. That makes me complicit in that theft. I understand that. And I accept whatever consequences come from it. But I'm here today because my father also left me something else. Evidence. 60 years of documented corruption involving the Castellano family and a network of politicians, judges, and officials who enabled them. I held up the USB drive. This drive contains proof of bribery, extortion, murder, and conspiracy at the highest levels of government. Names, dates, recordings, financial records. Everything you need to understand how deep this corruption goes. I'm releasing it today to every news organization here. It will also be uploaded to multiple online platforms within the hour. Once it's out there, it can't be suppressed. Some of you will call me a hero. Some will call me a traitor. I'm probably neither. I'm just someone who inherited an impossible choice and decided that the truth, however messy, matters more than comfort. My father spent 35 years too afraid to release this information. I won't make that mistake. I walked to each news organization and handed them copies of the drive. By the time I reached the last reporter, my phone was already exploding with messages. The story broke everywhere simultaneously. Within an hour, it was the biggest news story in the world. Senator Hayes resigned before he could be arrested. Judge Morrison disappeared, likely fled the country. The Attorney General was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The Castellanos were rearrested, this time on federal charges that couldn't be easily dismissed. And me? I became exactly what Victoria predicted. The most controversial person in America. Half the country saw me as a crusader exposing corruption. The other half saw me as a trust fund kid trying to destroy the government to settle a family grudge. Congress launched investigations. The FBI opened dozens of cases. The Justice Department appointed special prosecutors. And yes, they came after me too. I was charged with receiving stolen property, the $50 million my father took. I spent 3 months in court before a judge finally ruled that I couldn't be held responsible for my father's actions. But the damage was done. My reputation was destroyed. Companies I'd tried to work with wanted nothing to do with me. Friends stopped returning calls. Melissa left Colorado and came back, but things were different. Awkward. The pregnancy became about logistics and co-parenting plans rather than joy and excitement. 6 months after the press conference, I was sitting in my apartment. I'd sold the fancy place and moved to something modest when Marcus called. "Turn on the news." I did. The Senate had just passed the Anti-Corruption and Transparency Act, the most sweeping ethics reform in American history. Stricter disclosure requirements. Independent oversight of campaign finance. Criminal penalties for officials taking bribes. "They're calling it the Carter Act," Marcus said. "After your father. He'd hate that. Maybe. But he'd love what it does. Real reform, Daniel. Actual change." 3 years later, I sat in a hospital room holding my daughter for the first time. Clara, named after my grandmother. Melissa and I weren't together, but we were good co-parents. Better than I expected. "She's beautiful," Melissa whispered. "She is. What are you going to tell her?" Melissa asked. "About your father? About what you did?" I looked at my daughter's tiny face, thinking about the world she'd grow up in. A world that was messier than before, but also more honest. Where corruption was harder to hide. Where the truth had power. "I'll tell her the truth," I said. That her grandfather was flawed and complicated. That he made mistakes but tried to do right in the end. And that sometimes doing the right thing costs everything, but it's worth it anyway. Think she'll understand? Eventually, when she's old enough to appreciate how complicated life actually is. Marcus visited a week later. He brought a gift, a framed photo of my father from the 1980s, young and hopeful before everything got complicated. "Thought you'd want this," he said. I stared at that photo. "Do you think I did the right thing? Does it matter what I think?" "Yeah, it does." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Your father spent 35 years collecting evidence and never using it. He died with regrets. You didn't. You acted. You fought. You sacrificed everything to do what you thought was right. Right or wrong, that takes courage. But was I right? The government is more transparent now than it's been in decades. Corrupt officials are facing consequences. The system is slowly being fixed. Does that answer your question?" "I destroyed my life for this." "You destroyed your old life," Marcus corrected. "But you built something new. Something that matters. Your daughter is growing up in a better world because of what you did. That's not nothing." He was right. My life wasn't perfect. It wasn't comfortable. But it was honest. And after everything, that felt like enough. I looked at my father's photo. "I hope you're proud, Dad. I finished what you started. It cost me everything, just like you warned. But I'd do it again. Because that's what my father had taught me, even if he taught it imperfectly. That some things are worth fighting for. That truth matters. That courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it." He'd been too afraid to act for 35 years. But he'd raised a son who wasn't. And in the end, maybe that was his real legacy. Not the money, not the evidence, but the courage to do what's right, even when it costs everything. Thank you for listening to this story. If it made you think about what you'd do with impossible choices, leave a comment below. Would you have released the files? Would you have walked away? There's no right answer, just honest ones. And if you're new to Story Matrix Hub, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because every story here is about real people facing impossible decisions, about secrets that change everything, about the price of doing what's right. Remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is tell the truth, even when it destroys everything else. I'm Story Matrix Hub. Thanks for being here.